Well, coming back, Rich, I want to circle again back to the number of players that are playing, and that South Dakota Soccer is the largest youth sporting organization in the state. It would seem that in this particular time, South Dakota Soccer would be well positioned to expand the numbers, with childhood obesity rates being through the sky, and juvenile diabetes being in epidemic proportions across the country. Is there a possibility, or have you had a chance to visit with the South Dakota Department of Health, for example, or the Centers for Disease Control, about getting more kids involved in soccer? Because of all the sports we've talked about, running is one of the best things to do for kids to stay fit and healthy. And there's more of that in soccer than a lot of the other sports.
And soccer offers something too, and we come back to the recreational side, but soccer offers something that a lot of the other sports don't. Is we talk about skill development all the time, but you don't have to have those skills to play the game. Right. You can slowly develop your own skills within your own game, but you can still get out and run. A few years back, we'd had some conversations about trying to get into a get healthy type program and be part of that, and it just didn't go anywhere. And it's one of those things that time gets away from us, and we have to set priorities. And one of the first questions I would ask myself and address to the board at South Dakota Soccer is, not that you brought it up, maybe the most important thing right now, not only childhood obesity, but the self-esteem issues that they're running into. The family unit isn't the family unit of even 20 years ago. That really should be probably one of our priority areas, but we get so tied up in other little things like different rules and that type of thing that we miss that opportunity, and we miss the boat. And if there was a bunch of shareholders and we were a regular corporation, they'd probably remove most of us from the board because of what we're doing. But
focusing on some of those issues that tend to prevent kids from playing instead of getting them out there and playing. And you mentioned that time gets away from us. For a lot of these kids, they don't have much time to get healthy. They reach a certain point that the obesity, the diabetes is going to take control, and it's too late for them to get.
Exactly, yeah. And if we can get into their personal culture, again, I know I use that word a lot, but I think it's an important part. If we can get into that personal culture and get them to love something, to love the game of soccer. And again, you don't have to have great skills. You don't have to be able to hit a ball and catch a ball in a glove. You have to be able to position yourself in front of the ball and find a way to strike it with your foot one way or another that in some time has some meaning to it. And that's what it needs to do. You to do that, And so if we can establish that love of the game and the love to be outdoors, we've taken a giant step towards solving this problem that you're talking about. It sounds so easy, but it's not.
Yeah. Well, I know our youngest said at one point, we were talking about anti-drug. What's your anti-drug? It was a big campaign back in the early 2000s about that, and he said soccer was his anti-drug. Why would he ever want to mess anything up that would interfere with his soccer? So.
I have been blessed to have been able to be a part of the board of directors with South Dakota Soccer going way back to 1997. And sometimes it's time to get rid of old people, and sometimes you like to have that experience around. And about a year and a half ago, it was my feeling that soccer was in a little time of unrest, and they needed kind of a strong leader. And I have, as everybody in the world knows, an incredible Type A personality. And so I felt it was my turn to step up and take those reins and go forward and try and kind of lead the organization and get everybody kind of back on the same page. And we started out in that direction, but we've kind of lost focus of what we were going to do, and we need to bring that ball back together again. But a big part of what we have to do within South Dakota Soccer, I talked about the education part and trying to put it into the home areas of these people and get it into their local culture. I'm overusing that word, but that's what it is. And to do that, you have to market it in a correct manner. And that's the background that we've got even within our company, is doing marketing. And so a few years ago, while still a member of the board of directors, we stepped up and made a proposal to the board at that time and said, we've got to do some marketing. We will take it on, and we will do these steps to do that but it's going to take time out of our day, and here's a cost it's going to be. But before we go anywhere, let's examine, is this going to be a conflict of interest? And at that time, Mark Owen was the president. He went to USU Soccer, explained the situation, and they said as long as the individuals involved are not voting on their contract or negotiating their own contract, you're okay. It's not a conflict. And so that thing has just evolved. Right now, the biggest part of it is all communication. It is the website. It is constantly updating the website. It's going out like you guys do and looking for stories. We tag and tie to and link to stories that are on Soccer 605 because they're good things that have to be out there. And we've also tried to increase the branding part. And but yet I still know there's a conflict in there, folks that are wondering, can you be the president of the organization and can you be a major player in a company that we hire to do the marketing end? And Carol, I don't know that there's a really clear answer on that. I feel good with where we are. I know that every time it would get discussed that I would, if we're in a meeting, hand the gavel over to the next presiding officer who would be in attendance at that time, and I would have to leave. We have now coming in, and we'll make our final vote on it, on a conflict of interest policy within South Dakota Soccer to get a little more clear on some of these things, because it gets sticky with some of the members that are on the board and also paid executives within a soccer association. Mm-hmm. And so it's something that's always going to be a question. And if it is a conflict that is causing some undue unrest and is actually doing damage to the program, then we within our company would have to step back and say we've got a choice to make. What's more important to us? Is it helping South Dakota Soccer market themselves, or is it being directly involved in the board and letting that contract go to another organization? And
well, in the interest of full disclosure, and I appreciate this, Rich, what is the value of the contract that Jenesis Marketing has?
Jenesis Marketing gets paid a little over $800 a month, and we find that we probably run 30 to 40 hours in a month to do that.
Okay. So, and I'm sure during the high school season it's a heck of a lot more than that. And I think it would be difficult if I were in your position to distinguish between what is your duties as state president and what are your duties as the contract marketer, because they would have some overlap, and I'm sure
it does. And it's we both keep journals that look like planning guides or like appointment books at a doctor's office. Mm-hmm. And what they are timesheets. Mm-hmm. And because one of our clients that's not a soccer organization wants reports from us of what are the hours you're spending, and we break those down into 3 different areas for them. So both Janice and I, also with soccer, we log those hours, and you will see when if you were to look at my timesheets, you'd see SDSSA, and I put PREZ for Prez. That means that's my time. If it's marketing, if it's website, if it's high school website, and we kind of keep track of it that way.
Oh, okay. Well, people are going to have to make some decisions, but I think it's good to have that full open disclosure. Nobody's hiding anything here. This is exactly what's going on.
Well, it is, and like I said, I know that there are folks that are uneasy with it, mm-hmm. and that's fine, and if, again, the state organization feels that, it's just not something that's going to work, then we would certainly look back and maybe not so much our decision, but just ask them, what do you want? Because the last thing I want to do after being around, soccer since the late 80s and on the board since 97, the last thing I want to do is do something to mess it up. Mm-hmm. I kind of like to leave where everybody, when 10 years from now when they say my name, there'll be at least 3 people smile and say, oh yeah, I remember him.
And you've been around and had an impact on soccer, a positive impact for many years. So, going back, let's also hit the fact that you live in Iowa.
It is, and it's it's kind of like that cross-border agreement.
Do we have a cross-border agreement allowing you to come from Iowa and be a president at South Dakota Soccer?
Well, it's that's an interesting. Well, it's interesting because this is what you discover. The bylaws, again, been around since the 70s, mm-hmm. and this happened that I have been involved in business for decades in Sioux Falls, own a business in Sioux Falls. and just happened to reside over in Iowa. Actually 19 miles from where we are here, about 8 or 9 miles into Iowa, is we really didn't discover it until I was going to run for president, and we found in the bylaws that the official office address shall be where the president resides.
So our office
So
address
that's a
is-
problem. So now we have made that correction to where our office address is actually the office address that's listed with U.S. Soccer and everything else, and that's on Frida Circle here
Yeah.
in Sioux Falls, and got that fixed too. So
That's funny.
yeah, it's and it's kind of a funny thing because within Iowa Soccer, if they've got something going in Northwest Iowa, it's not uncommon for their office to give me a buzz and see if I can run over and take care of it, because it's so close, and so easy to take care of, rather than having them drive 4 hours out of Des Moines to meet with people.
And I think the Region 2 states have always done a lot of cross-helping that way anyhow.
Yeah, they have, and it's from a president's standpoint, I don't know about that. I know that there are states that have had executive directors live in another state and work in their state, and we have situations close to us in Region 2 with Kansas and Missouri, with the Kansas City metro area down there, or the Omaha Council Bluffs area, that we have people that literally are on the board that are part of even Bellevue Soccer, but they have an Iowa address, and they're also part of the board with Nebraska Soccer too. And
So we're all kind of
so
cross-border.
it's of course my opinion is I'm a pretty good choice to I'm an asset that you can hang on to, and I may be the sole owner of that opinion, but
No, you're not.
so.
Well, that does bring up a whole other issue, Rich, and it's related to operating the same as we have since the 70s, and where do we go from here. I think most states now have a full-time paid executive director, a full-time paid director of coaching. South Dakota is a little behind on that. Dawn has been doing the registrar duties and some of the executive director duties for a while. I'm not sure if she's considered full-time.
She is
We have
full-time,
a part-time DOC, and it's kind of hard to have a consistent message with part-time people who have their interests pulling different directions.
It's and again, this is, I want to qualify, these are my opinions. I've had conversations with board members informally as we talk about some of these things, but my opinions of what I see for South Dakota going forward is because, as we've talked about, we've got a wide range of larger metropolitan areas, small markets, and we have people wanting to interpret rules. We have state events that need to be run. We need to have leagues that need to be run. That South Dakota Soccer does need a strong leadership individual in that role. That we should look at some form of well, not even a form of, we should look at probably an executive director. An executive director's job is to manage the organization, be that strong leader, and the board should then set goals and set some desired outcomes they'd like to see, and then just get out of the way and not be the day-to-day manager, and that's what we've got now.
And that seems to be typically what's happening with other successful state soccer associations.
The successful ones, yes, and that's a very important word, because there are organizations that want to micromanage their leadership, and that's killing them right now. Go find somebody that's highly qualified and then get out of their way.
No, the professional model is getting your leader and choosing that person wisely, giving them good direction, and then just giving them the support they need to accomplish the goals that you gave them.
Right.
We still are stuck to a great extent, and I use the word stuck, I don't mean that to be derogatorily, but in the volunteer model in South Dakota, where everyone are all volunteers, and that can only go so far in an organization, because people do have other commitments and other obligations, and it's hard to stay focused sometimes when something comes up, such as talking about the pursuing a grant possibly with the South Dakota Department of Health or the CDC. It's just difficult to follow through and have people accomplish a lot if everyone's a volunteer and has no accountability is one of the issues you can throw up.
It is too, and we do see a little bit of turnover on the board, but there are some of us that have been on that board for a long, long time, and that can also be a detriment, that you are not opening up the opportunity for young folks to come in and,
And bring in new ideas.
New ideas, and that would be change. And, all of us old timers shudder in the nonprofit world when you hear the word change, but that is what has to happen. And, it may be times that there are some of us, including me, that don't want to let go. But we do, for the good of the game and the good of the kids. Maybe it's time for us to hop on that horse and say goodbye the last time and head off into the sunset and go coach a under-8 team and referee soccer games.
You're describing idyllic pastures there.
Yeah, well, and you hope that you won't be shot in the back as you're leaving. But.
Well, I know you. As you know, I've been on a number of boards, and one of my goals has always been to start looking for my replacement the minute I get on there, and to try and be cognizant of at what point am I no longer really contributing to the discussion. At what point am I starting to hold on to this as my little power position? And that's really easy to do if you've been a volunteer and dedicated a lot of time to not recognize when you are saying, this is my social base, this is my power base, I don't want to let go. And you don't have to let go. You can step aside, let someone else come in and take that, and still be involved as a mentor and as a resource for people.
You can.
So
you can.
That's a good point. People probably need to be aware of that. And I'm not pointing the finger at any particular individuals on the board, just in general.
It's our specialty within our business is working with nonprofits, and one of the things we find with some nonprofits, including congregations, is you've got the same leadership so long that it almost takes on the persona of that person, and it becomes their organization and not the members' organization anymore.
It becomes very closed.
Yes.
And
it, I know that we have clubs within this state that are struggling with that right now. There are new people that, because they call me and ask for advice, and it's on both ends of the state, and there are new folks that get in and maybe end some of the ways that business have done before, and look at some new ways to do it. Knowing they're going to make some mistakes, but look at some new ways to do it. But they're finding their roadblocks because there are people that have been there so long that they're not willing to give it up because it's their baby and they don't want anybody to change it.
Yeah, and being aware of that is kind of tough. And I think, we're going to make mistakes. As long as we're not hurting the kids or preventing them from being able to play.
Right.
That's the main thing, because we have to keep in mind that that's what this whole South Dakota Soccer Association is about. It's about youth soccer, and it's not the adults. The adults can take care of themselves. And speaking of the Adult Soccer Association, it's growing. In South Dakota, and that's good to see that the kids have another avenue when they reach that age.
That's another avenue that we've got to take a look at is getting all soccer together in one form or another. We don't all have to belong to the same corporate shell. Maybe we form a strategic partnership, but
or maybe a joint AGM every other year.
That logistically it would just be so much easier to manage, if nothing else, from the referee standpoint
and fields
and sharing and fields. It would be so much easier to manage it under one thing. And I have learned one thing over the years, even before I became president, but I've learned one thing over the years is if we have some daunting problem in front of us, I start calling folks I know all over the nation. And usually they either know something or they know somebody that's been through the same thing. And they may not give us the answer, but they can sure give us some direction to go and try and find that answer, and those are good resources to have too.
Yeah, we have great resources. Well, speaking of resources, I know time is one of those precious ones for you, Rich. So we appreciate you taking some time with us at Soccer 605. Hopefully we've answered a lot of questions that people may have out there, and maybe raised a few that we'll have to come back and answer again.
Well, that's the whole point. And the fun part about this whole thing is old dogs like me, I was going to say like us, but I'd back off, Carol.
You can say it.
Is, we think we've got it all figured out. And when you talk about 605 and Randy is standing right here looking at us, that, Randy and I had a conversation back in October at the state high school tournament. And I was trying to prove my point that I was right, and he was trying to come in with something to show that he was more right. And then he said something about taking opportunities away from kids, and it literally shut me down. In fact, I drove away from that thing, And Randy would remember that I came back later that day and climbed up on a picnic table and said, "Wow, you hit me." You know, I missed something. In all my things of saying, I know exactly how to do this, I missed something really important. And it took an old timer, an old friend, to tell me, take a look at it this way.
And sometimes it's the young coach who's still wet behind the ears that points it out.
It is.
So
It is.
We have to be open and listen to those different opinions. And as you said, if we keep the kids in mind, topmost priority, eventually we'll come to the right answers.
It does. It does. Thank you so much.